Yeah.
Welcome to this episode of Mindset Mondays, a place where you can find tips to improve your personal performance or business outcomes one step at a time. Verge, we are back here with another episode. How are you today, bro?
Man, I am doing great. The sun is out, so I cannot complain.
Man, today we have our topic is actually notes that you have gone over with your coach. And one of the things that I wanted to do before we started our topic is remind all the entrepreneurs out there and the leaders out there how important it is to have a coach or have a strategist as a part of your team, as a part of your performance goals, because you cannot do this thing alone.
So is that a shameless plug for your business?
Oh, no, it's not a shameless plug for my business, because I was getting ready to ask you, give me 3 reasons on why you keep a coach and how a coach has helped you improve your performance.
Man, you're always trying to go into this deep thinking stuff, man. We got to stick to the topic, man.
Give me one reason. All right, give me one reason.
Thinking big.
Okay, all right, there we
always keeps me thinking big. Accountability, and they are the third eye to my business, looking at things that maybe I'm not seeing with my own 2 eyes in order to take my business and myself to the next level.
That's a big thing. The third eye to your business. Coaches can see from the outside what you need to see on the inside, what you can't see, and they can see the potential in you that you may not be able to see yourself. So talking about thinking big, that's actually what we're discussing today. These notes came from your coach, the 10 laws of thinking big. We're only going to do 5 today in part 1, and we'll do 5 in part 2. All right.
So quick question, Darren. I know we're going up. What does thinking big look like for you?
Thinking big looks like for me, so I don't want to be long-winded, but let me give you a story.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
And I shared this with my clients. Was riding down the street with my daughter Addison the other day. She tells me, Daddy, I want to go to the top of that skyscraper and I want to jump off. Automatically, I'm thinking that I'm going to have to talk to this girl about suicide. And I said, well, I don't think you should do that. It's not safe. And she says, but I'm going to have a jetpack engine on me that's going to allow me to fly from the top and land on my feet at the bottom. Thinking big means I think like her, that my imagination has no boundaries on where my business can go, my potential could go. Thinking small is when I'm trapped in reality, safety, and comfort. So that's what I would say thinking big means to me.
That's a great way to put it, man.
All right, so let's look at the 10 laws. And let me ask you this, Virg. I want to ask you this after law number 1, the law of expansion. How much time do we put in the right activities and thoughts in place in the expansion of our business and what we expect in our life? The law of expansion. How do you think big through the law of expansion?
So I have time scheduled to think not only about my life personally, but also about my business. So my coach had me write what's called a year-end letter, right? Where you write and you dated for, let's just say, December 31st, 2021. And you're writing about all of your accomplishments and goals that you wanted to achieve. And you're basically writing it to yourself, congratulating yourself on what you're doing. So at 6:30 a.m., I actually read that letter every morning that I'm working to keep my mind expanding, getting excited and reminding myself about my goals. So that's time that I use for expansion and critical, and thinking. And then in the afternoon from 2 to 3, I also have time where I'm reading to expand my mind, thinking about my business, thinking about how to improve it.
That's good, man. One of the things that I do is I look at my life plan. So I have a life plan. Now, this is a shameless plug. I have a life plan myself, and I do life plans for my clients. And one of the questions in the Talent Heart Assessment says, what is your opus gloria contribution to the world? What is your biggest contribution that you think you're going to make to the world? And in order to make that, you need to think backwards, take the barriers out of the way or find a way to get around them and do whatever you have to do to get to that goal of impact or that goal of reward. All right, here we go. The law of challenge. We all have typical responses to challenges. Are you the person when a challenge hits that you confront it straight on and you go and say, I'm a solution maker? Or do you retreat, or do you do a little bit of both? How do you respond to challenges? Responding to challenges automatically lets somebody know what mind state you are in and how you think. How should somebody respond to challenges if they think big, if they're thinking big?
Yeah, when it comes to challenges, man, if you're thinking big and you're trying to achieve your goals,
Mhm.
you have two different modes, right? You either fight it and you attack it head on, or there's fight or flight.
Yeah.
So for me, I fight most of the time, but there are areas where I kind of flight and avoid it.
Yeah.
I feel like everybody, it's in their lives, they do a little bit of both. Sometimes they do more than others. I would say I do more fight than I do flight, but there are times where I do not attack it like I should.
Let me add a third one in there for you. Fight, flight, or freeze. Some people do neither. They just freeze. It paralyzes them. You know your term that you love to use, paralysis by analysis? They just freeze and stick there. So one of those three.
That's a great one.
If you are going to think big, you have to have a contingency plan on how you respond to challenges. You cannot respond to challenges emotionally. You have to respond to them through logic and through ethics. Of course, emotions are going to be involved, but that shouldn't be the foundation of how you respond to your challenges. So number 3, the law of frustration. What are your typical responses when things become frustrating? Talk to me about that one.
Yeah, man. So there's always going to be frustrating times that take place in both your personal and business life. And it's usually when something was interrupted in the plan that you have. So for me, my old coach, Kathy Anderson, always said, you create in the direction of your emotions.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you're frustrated, then in most cases, as you said, and we go back to point number 2, you're either going to do flight or you're going to do freeze. Right. But if you deal with something that comes unexpected, don't get frustrated. You just have to move on, man. And big thinkers are very self-aware. They don't allow the little things to get in their way. They just respond quickly in a positive manner, man, to those frustrations. And they don't allow them to last long.
That's right.
Mike Ferry, who's to me the #1 real estate trainer, always says, you can't give yourself any more than 5 minutes really to either be in the flight or the freeze mode.
Yeah.
Or to be frustrated or mad. You got to move on. You can't give that enough time. You can't give it that power.
Man, that is so good. And for those who are not in flight or freeze, one of the things that can happen, especially for those who are a little more assertive or a little more aggressive in a good way, when they're frustrated, they pick the wrong fights. They fight the wrong battles. That's why, sometimes when they talk about fight, flight, or freeze, all of them can be good things if they're used in the right way. If you're a fighter, you may need to stop and think before you react, or before you act. You shouldn't react, you should act. If you are somebody that goes into flight, maybe you need to fight this battle because it's going to pull something out. You need to pick which response is the right response for that time. Don't pick fights that don't need to be picked. Don't run, and don't freeze and procrastinate on the decisions when it comes to frustration. The law of reality, number 4.
This is my favorite, man.
This is your favorite one right here?
Yeah. Are you able to see things as they are or only as you'd like them to be?
Man.
So personal and universal growth is all reality based. Too many people live in fantasy land.
Oh.
So Darren, how well do you do with dealing with reality? I love dealing with reality. I'm a black or white guy. I know you and I kind of butt heads sometimes because you always say, Verge, there's a gray area.
Yeah.
There's black or white. It's a binary. It's a binary thing with me, man. It's either a yes or a no. There's no maybe or there's a possibility. No.
There are, so Verge, we've had this discussion multiple times.
Let's
There are
stick to the
gray
topic.
areas in some places. I used to be very black and white like you. I've become a little more nuanced now. But when it comes to the law of reality, sometimes I'm a little too hard on myself, and I'm so stuck in the present and what the reality is that I don't leave myself a passageway to look at the future and look back on the problem that I'm facing. That's one of the things that I tell my clients. When you're in the midst of a hard thing, or you're in the midst of a problem or a challenging time, you need to leave yourself a crack in the doorway so you can walk out and look at yourself in the future and turn around and look at this problem to see if it's really that big. What do you need to do to handle it? Can you get over it? Right? And all of that. So I am a person who deals with reality very often, but I will say this: we are building a culture of entrepreneurs who, because they see opportunity all over the world and they see the world scaling in a way that it has never done before, they operate outside of reality. And what happens is they believe that they can walk into opportunity unprepared, uneducated, and when failure or rejection smacks them in their face, they're blaming the system instead of getting back up and doing it again. Right? And so I've been recently on this kick where I've been telling people, be careful where you get your motivation and your inspiration from, because you will have a lot of people who are selling you stuff that are not reality. And instead of giving you the meats and vegetables of entrepreneurship, they're giving you a dessert table. They're empty calories, right? You need to watch where you eat when it comes to your reality, your plans, and your purpose. So that's where I would say, and we know where you sit. Give me one of the things, Verge, on how being so black and white helps you, and give me one place where it hurts you.
I think from a business standpoint, it helps me because it allows me not to, as we talked about previously, about having emotional responses and not being in, having this fantasy land. I feel like you get more in fantasy land when you are emotional about stuff.
Yeah.
So I think it helps with to be black and white professionally. There are certain aspects in my personal life where probably according to you, I need to add a little gray area into the situation.
Let's get number 5 and let's get on out of this episode. The last one for part number 1, the law of opposition. The universe operates on both opposing positive and negative forces. There are people opposing you when you're trying to accomplish something. Who's pushing backwards? Who's moving forward? Who's fighting with you and stopping you from achieving your goals? The law of opposition. People who think big understand the law of opposition. They understand how it motivates them and how it leads them to conquer also. Give me a little bit about the law of opposition and close us out here, Verge.
Yeah, man. So I'll just keep it simple. If it's to be, it's up to me, right? So regardless, to think big, you really have to understand that there's always going to be that opposition. And that's where our competitive spirit has to kick in, right? Where you're not going to allow someone or something to get in your way. So if you hold your own self accountable and realize that nobody and nothing can stop you from achieving your goals, then if it's to be, it's up to me.
Yeah.
If I win, I get the credit. If I fail, I get the credit.
Man, that's the thing. You worry about the things that you can control. You cannot control what your opposition is going to do to distract you, to come after you, but you can control how you respond to it. What is the phrase that you use, Verge, when things happen to us? 90% of give me that phrase you use when we're experiencing problems. 90% of how this problem plays out is our response, and 10% is actually the problem. You say it way better than that. Give me that phrase.
Yeah, so it's basically it's 90%, 10% what happens to you, 90% how you respond to it.
There you go. You need to use that in a law of opposition.
Yeah.
This law of opposition is about 10% of what's happening to me, 90% of how I respond. Well, once again, we've closed out a great episode, Verge. I love these sessions with you. Won't you go ahead and give the closure for our people out there and tell them what they can do before they catch up with us next episode?
So if you could feel free as always to share with anybody, drop any notes or any comments or maybe what may have helped you, what you're working on, and don't forget to smash that like button. We always like to know that you're tuning in, and again, give us feedback. And part 2 is on the way.
Part 2 is on the way. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. Have a great week.